Okay, going to pick up the mic in a few minutes here for everybody. I'm going to try to post this to Facebook. And then we'll get going. Good evening, everybody. Let's check and see if this frequency is in use. Also turning down our power. Don't need all that power all the time. All right. This is Neil, W2NDG, and this is the OMARC Sunday Night Science and Technology Net. Ooh, yeah. We meet here every Sunday at 8 p.m. to talk about science and technology, as the name says. But first, let's pause and see if there is any emergency or priority traffic. All right, nothing heard. Once again, this is the OMARC Sunday Night Science and Technology Net. Every Sunday night at 8 p.m., I'm joined here usually by my cohort, Jim. K2BHM. I told you, the brain's not working quite right today. I think there was MSG in my Chinese food. I'm not sure, though. Anyway, and whoever logs in, and sometimes with a prearranged topic, sometimes a series of topics that we were going on. I've paused most of the series topics for the summer because we don't want to really get deeply into anything when a lot of people are unable to attend or tired and don't really want a particularly long net on a Sunday night. So, but here we are. So I have an interesting topic picked out for tonight, but we can throw that one away and do something else if nobody likes it. But a kind of general topic, we're going to discuss the term hack. And what I think it means in a broader sense. What is someone who hacks? What is hacking? What is a person who is described as a hack from a positive point of view? I think we all know the negative connotations of that. Let me drop. First, let's see if Jim is joining us tonight. Jim, K2BHM, are you with us tonight? All right, that's fine. We all know that anybody in the net that's been listening to Jim has been dealing with some medical issues that he's trying to get a handle on, and we all wish him well. If he is available in a little while, we'll check in again. So what is a hack, and where am I going with this? Hacking as a term gets applied to computing very often. Definitely a very common term in the computer world. And but what does it actually mean? We hear black hat hacking, white hat hacking. That's not the direction I'm going in tonight. From an engineering point of view, I consider a hack or someone who is hacking to be somebody who takes something, a device, a system, anything complex, and either makes it do something it's not supposed to do, or fixes it using unconventional means, resources, and or parts, or figures out how to use or access something through unofficial or abnormal means. From a mechanical point of view, let me drop. One of my favorite terms is zip ties and duct tape. Something as simple as that is what I'm talking about. We've all fixed something through some abnormal or unconventional means. So that's what we're looking for tonight. And I think we'll take some check-ins. And in our first round, what I'm looking for is an example of a time where you had to think outside the box a little bit and figure out how to do something that was undocumented or something that was documented and there was no way that you were going to be able to do what you were supposed to do, but you still had to somehow make this thing work. Anything like that. Substituting an ingredient in a recipe constitutes hacking. Figuring out a way to create something without having the proper tools. Anything like that. That's what we're looking for. So let's do some check-ins. Let me drop first. To check into the net, you're going to give me your call sign, your name, and your location. Call sign, name, and location. Please come now. All right. Good crew tonight. Some of the usual suspects. A good amount of first round check-ins there. Probably the lower humidity. We're not all so exhausted today. Mike, if you're still there, do you want to chime in real quick if you have any quick examples of something you kludged together?
I wouldn't know where to begin, Neil. Everything in my life is hacked together, and pretty much Linda just said that everything that she does all day long at the bakery with cakes is all, you have to put stuff together without being able to do it, and you have to hack it. So that's what she does. I'm a hacker. She's a hacker. So back to you, Neil. Katie too, I met her.
We're out of baking powder, but we've got Mentos and 7-Up. Oh, great stuff. And yeah, Jill, if she heard me say something similar, would be laughing just as loud because she knows how many things get hacked together around here. Good stuff, Mike. Enjoy your evening. Any last comments?
That's about it. We're going into Pleasant Valley. It's going to get scratchy for a few minutes, so I'll sign, say 70 degrees, everybody, and we'll talk to you guys tomorrow on the morning net. And that's about it. KD2, I'm at R. We'll be listening out.
All right, thanks, Mike. And before we move up to the top of the list, let's just see if K2BHM is here or back from wherever he might have been. Jim, are you around, K2BHM? All right. So first up on the list tonight is Jim, KD2VAH. Jim, what have you put together with chewing gum, zip ties, and Elmer's glue?
Well, first of all, I spent 30 years as a hacker, but I do understand your version of it. So in my particular line of work, that's what it was called. I don't know why. I don't think I can even tell you. I really don't. I don't even have an idea. Turnkey. Hey, I get that. I understood that one. But we've all modified things. I mean, like I've always told the wife, I'm the guy you want to be with on the desert island. I will get you the hot water. I'll get you heat. I'll get you it. You may not like the way it looks, and you won't, but it will work. So, hacking things together, making it work, in my mind, that's all that counts. Apparently, in other people's minds, you're supposed to make it look pretty. Anyway, back to that.
Well, as we know, a lot of inventions start that way, just trying to make something do something else and then figuring out how to refine that. But it is a cool question, and it can apply to computing. It definitely can, and I've certainly done enough things in that regard. I always loved trying to shoehorn devices in places where they didn't belong. That was my start in the computer world because I was given a pile of parts that weren't necessarily designed all to work together, and I built my first PC out of them. So I have a whole list of them myself. One of my favorites was when I took a very early Windows Mobile handheld, an HTC Touch, which was a no keyboard touchscreen phone before the iPhone existed. So no, Apple didn't invent that. And the hardware that this thing was based on was very, very, very similar to the Android reference phone. So a couple of guys figured out how to hack Android onto this thing. So a very, very, very early Android user, I managed to get that working. I believe it was the version of Android that was on there was Cupcake. And it worked. It worked. It was definitely interesting. And if you, on my YouTube channel, if you go all the way back, like way, 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 way back, there's a video of the thing booting somewhere. So thanks, Jim. All right. So, Jerry, I'm sure you probably have a good one for us. You have a good hacking example?
Yeah. Kind of forced on me somewhat due to lack of support from the vendor. Had a copy of an ATL program, the language itself, not an application program. And you remember the utter panic in the industry why Y2K was coming up. Oh my God, the sky is falling. And I determined that, it had a problem with date time for the flip new century. Absolutely no support from the vendor. Let me drop. So with a binary editor and plunge into the binary, look around, finding things like control blocks, the OS to play around with, and window sizes and declarations and dimensions of the window and colors and all this kind of stuff, raster and all blah blah blah, screens and windows. Well, that was nice playing around with that. Well, I finally found the time thing. Turns out they had hard coded the high 2 digits of the year. They actually hard coded the 19 equivalent in the binary. And all I had to do was bump it up by one and save it away. But I had gotten in there far enough that, well, look, I found all these control blocks, and this thing, the program was written to run on the base machine, a 68,000 machine, and I was running a 6805 plugged in the equivalent hardware instructions into the language, just patched them in. There's a relocatable loader system on the Amiga, so that I was able just to tail end to the additional places to patch and do all that kind of nonsense by the loader. So yeah, I wound up getting hardware acceleration into it, playing around with Windows and all the rest of the stuff. There were a few places that were confusing. I wasn't really sure what was going on, but I far exceeded my initial goal and had a lot of fun to the party. Nobody way too hard, yeah, back to that.
Thanks, Jerry. I love the Amiga reference. It was the demise of that company that finally drove me into becoming a PC guy, but I do embrace all computers. Such a shame that company couldn't hold it together. But I've certainly, done a lot of basic work like that. I haven't done much heavy work, but I've certainly unloaded things into editors and done a little fooling around with it. The first time I ever saw anybody do anything like that was my late brother Paul. Was trying to one of the things that he did in the Commodore 64 days was he would try to hack cartridges, software that came on cartridges, so he could get it onto a disk instead. And he had been pretty successful with it, but sometimes he had to change a little bit of the code on the fly to make things actually work that way. And when he was trying to, let's say, borrow a piece of software from somebody who had it on a cartridge one time, as he kept scrolling through this editor, in the ASCII column were these little comment messages like, "Why are you spending all of this time scrolling through my code? Why not just send me $20 and get the source code from me?" It was great. Really enjoyable. I love a programmer with a sense of humor. So thanks, Jerry. And we'll come back around again. Matt, KB2GGF, what have you fixed or done through unconventional means?
Well, like Mike MNR was saying earlier, that's sort of the description of my life. I have always made things do and make things work, so everything is cobbled together. I was thinking, your list of zip ties, duct tape, and chewing gum is absolutely good. Vice grip and heat shrink tube. Vice grips are near and dear to my heart. I tend to think of repairing things, building things, operating things, doing things as simply as possible with as few parts and pieces and as cheaply as possible. Let me drop it. So everything has been hacked. Vice grips I like a lot because, my God, what can't you do with vice grips? A friend of mine got a car with no steering wheel. Weird deal down in Brooklyn. But it was a real good car, and he had to get a steering wheel for it. So instead of waiting for the steering wheel, which is going to be a couple of days, he drove around Brooklyn with a pair of vice grips clamped to the steering column, the shaft to the steering column. I don't know what he did for a horn. I guess he touched the wires together, but it got him to work, So I always like that. Another guy I know was missing a door handle in his car. Vice grips, away you go. Recently, heat shrink. I broke my glasses, broke the hinge. No way to fix the tiny screw or anything like that. I heat shrinked it. That was 2 months ago. I'm still wearing them. Yeah, I can't hold them, but I can wear them. Back to that. KB2GG.
Good stuff, Matt. You made me think of a couple of things. I remember the numerous apartments that I had over the years, the things that would happen to them. When I was much younger, going through a period where, God, I never had the right tool, and I didn't have a whole lot of money to buy them with anyway. Holes in walls, small nail holes, or you know, uh, something that happened. When something got thrown into a wall, usually during a party. But toothpaste can be used as spackle. Um, it hardens, it can be smoothed out, and it leaves your walls minty fresh. Um, my favorite of all the ones I've done, actually, has to do with a car. Let me drop. And as I've mentioned many times on this net and other nets, I went through a period in my life where I drove a lot of junkyard cars. I had a lot of junkers, and just kept, going from one to another. But one of the better ones was a '93 Volkswagen Fox. A neighbor of my brother's had this thing, and we fixed it up, and I put a lot of miles on that car. And for those of you who don't know what a Volkswagen Fox is, you may have heard of the Audi Fox. They are not the same car. The Volkswagen Fox was based on a Brazilian-designed Volkswagen called the Gol, Gol, and the sedan version of it, which has a different name than that even, was federalized and brought in from, I think, 1988 or 87 until 93. And they dropped the 1.8 Golf motor in it, and it only came with standard transmission. But you could get it with air conditioning. It came 2-door, 4-door, and a really cool 2-door wagon they made for a while. But yeah, I had a 4-door sedan GL Wolfsburg edition on the drop with air conditioning. That car got repaired through so many crazy means, but my favorite repair I ever did on it was when the belt tensioning system for the alternator. But it wasn't a serpentine belt like today's cars have. It was a multifunction belt that did the alternator and something else. And their Volkswagen's tensioning system is infamous for disintegrating at some point. It uses this weird ratcheting mechanism. And when it's working, it's fine. But when they break, they are hard to deal with. And I had trouble getting it to come off of the block, the part that attaches to the block. I couldn't get it off. And just prying at it, hammering at it, and eventually actually chipped a piece off of the block. Luckily, not anywhere where it caused a leak. But so I gave up. And I went down to P&T Surplus, our favorite place in Kingston. And went in. And I said, Tim, I told him what's going on. He says, what do you need? And I said, I don't know. I'm just going to stare at the hardware for a while until an idea comes to me. So I bought some very long bolts, some nuts and lock washers, and some turnbuckles. And I created my own tensioning mechanism out of 2 turnbuckles and some long bolts. And I fastened the whole thing there in his parking lot and adjusted it to the proper tension. And I was so proud of it. I popped the hood after I was done again, made sure that it worked. I pulled back into my spot and went in and got Tim and showed him what I had created. And that thing ran with that tensioning system in it until the day I junked it. That was my favorite hack of everything I've ever done. And Matt, the last time I went to the eye doctor in Poughkeepsie years ago with a pair of broken glasses, that's exactly what they did to fix them temporarily, because I only needed a few weeks till I got my new ones. So good stuff. Bob, KD2RFI, favorite hack?
Good evening, everyone. KD2RFI. Yeah, there's been a few hacks. Not too much mechanical-wise, but I guess probably my first pickup I had. I think it was a Mazda B2000, little 2-wheel drive stick shift. I got it given to me, actually. A friend of my parents had it sitting around, just wanted to get rid of it. So the downside was the carburetor was falling off. All the screws were stripped. So once or twice. And you know, it would start cutting out, sucking air, and I'd have to pull over and find something else to shove down in those holes to keep the screws in. For some reason, I never lost the screws, but man, that carburetor would just bounce around on top of that truck, and it did it right up until the day I got rid of it. We never did fix it. We never did. I guess back then it was helic coils were probably the big thing, I guess. But yeah, that was it. It's simple to see something like that. Nowadays, I'm welding up truck plows to use on my tractor, and maybe dragging tires behind to smooth out the driveway surface or something. But pretty much I've done a lot of playing around, a lot of hacking over the years. My first learning of the word hack was 21 years ago when I evidently took the same career path as somebody else here. And in case you wonder what it means, it's horses posterior carrying keys. So I think I'd rather think about dragging tires behind the tractor than the acronym for 21 years. So, all right, that's about it. I'm probably going to be one and done because I got to start walking the dogs and start getting ready to pull another tomorrow. So, anyway, you all have a good night, and I'll be listening in and out. But everyone, take care. Have a good night. Have a great.
Thanks, Bob. And thanks for that one. We didn't get that one from Jim, now did we? Oh, good stuff. And there were so many of those car hacks. Oh, yeah. Just one after another. Mitsubishi pickup, which I've mentioned numerous times on here. That thing was held together with whatever I could find. And the automatic choke went in that thing. Just would not work. And looking at it, there was really no way I was going to fix it without replacing the carb. Not easily, anyway. So I decided to set the chokes to a happy medium so that they were closed enough that I could at least start the thing by just like pumping the crap out of it. And then open enough that it would run okay. I just picked a happy medium and just set it permanently there. And it worked. I mean, the thing never got good gas mileage, so I wasn't really all that concerned. That was a crazy vehicle. All right, this is W2NDG on the OMARC Sunday Night Science and Technology Net. Looking for late check-ins after the first round. And tonight's subject is the hack and hacking, and what have you fixed with zip ties, duct tape, and oatmeal? Is there anybody else out there who would like to check in? Come now with your first name, your call sign, and your location.
Mike, KT2, you can take Tivoli. This is Tom, November 2, Foxtrot, Zulu Travel.
Apparently the repeater has a story about hacking as well. All right, 2 more check-ins. Mike, I can only imagine. You must have a good story for us about something that you have put to use for purposes that it wasn't meant to be used for, or somehow the way you fix something without having the right tools. What's your best story?
Well, waking up every morning is my best hack, and it still works. And at one time, 40 years ago, I used to be the go-to guy in Tivoli. But in short, my favorite hack, I walked into this boiler room at a church, and I thought I was looking at the Sistine Chapel. This work was perfect. But on a job that I had done where we put a boiler in a closet, and anybody who looked into that room said, I didn't know elk migrated through Tivoli. That's all I gotta say. Back to you.
Well, in my line of work, the equivalent would be, a server room, something with a lot of network cabling. And every now and then I'll walk into one and I look at it, and I'm just amazed that the person that put it together was an artist. Some of these networking companies really do an amazing job. And I know there's certain standards and a certain way that you're supposed to do it, but every now and then you run into one and you see it and you're like, wow, this guy is an artist. And then you see these joke pictures online all the time, just a spider's nest, and I'm not talking about a sane spider, a spider on hallucinogenics, spinning webs, just a crazy nest of tangled wires that cannot be sorted out or understood. Makes the brain hurt. And I've seen them. Work for a company that had one. Oh my God. And everything usually in a place like that tends to reflect on that type of thinking. Our phone system, was that old and that hacked together as well. And I was always, finding bobby pins and paper clips to try to make things work. But all right, Tom, into FCC. What's your favorite hack story?
See, so if I have anything good like that, one of the hacks I think of is, you have one of these Chinese radios with the reverse SMA. You want to hook up to an antenna with an N connector, so it's reverse SMA to SMA to BNC to PL259 to N. And then you got to carefully balance DHT so you don't stress the connectors. But I remember one project I did with my son. I think it was an ICOM 125, I forget. But 2-meter radio, I think it was 5-channel, and it was programmed by diodes, and there was a formula you had to use to figure out the frequency. So I studied that for a while and got it down to a simpler form, and was able to use a microcontroller so that you could input a frequency, and it would program the frequency, sort of like switching a diode matrix. I did a proof of concept, but never really boxed it up and used it to any extent, but it did get it to work. That's all I got here. Is that true?
Oh, it's fine. I mean, it can be something fairly simple as well. I remember as a kid, and my brother had taught me something that he discovered was that, if you take an ordinary soda can and use the pull tab, of course, the ones that stay on the can like we have now, and after the can pops, if you continue to pull the tab forward over the hole that you've created, you have a couple of holes in the pull tab located over the hole you're going to drink out of. And we all know that some particularly bubbly sodas, if you put a straw into that drinking hole at that point, the straw is going to bubble right back out of the can and fall over and possibly get nasty and dirty, and you'll be upset. So my brother taught me to pull that tab all the way over until the holes in the tab are over the holes that you're going to drink out of. Stick the straw through the rounder of the two holes and pull it up just enough to hold the straw in place. And that's what I did. And I never thought anything of it. I never thought it was particularly ingenious or anything. It is a pretty cool idea. And I'm sure he's not the only one who's ever thought of it, but maybe he was. I don't know. And one day I was having lunch with some people, I think when I first started middle school, maybe, I don't know. And we had sodas for some reason, or I was at some kind of event. And I did that with my straw. And somebody was like, "What did you just do?" And then I explained it to him. And he said, "This is incredible." And he started taking it around and showing it to everybody in the room. And one of the teachers asked me where I had seen this. This was fantastic. And it's like, I don't know. It's pretty basic to me. But it can be that simple. It really can. And you meet people who have these engineering minds. And frequently, when I have had to think on my feet and make something work, I get called the M word. Yes, MacGyver. It happens. All right. Anybody else like to check in before we start at the top? All right, back up to Jim, KD2VAH. So Hack apparently has another meeting to you. Uh-oh. We lost Jim, which means he's getting coffee or we put him to sleep. Jim, KD2VAH, you still there? All right. So he's not. Mike checked out. So Jerry, anything further?
Yeah, I suspect, he's probably gone to get coffee. We know he likes coffee. The only question, of course, is whether it's Irish coffee. Yeah, using the binary editor trick was something I used to do occasionally at work as well. We used to build our own systems, virtual machines, and use it to chase down problems. And it would take time to define and create the binary for the virtual machine. So typically you'd have one stored away, and if it wasn't what you exactly needed for the moment, you'd have to go and build another one. So I would occasionally go in and edit that binary, change disk drive numbers or the amount of storage or the amount of RAM space for the machine. On another front, when I was renting an apartment, I had a sliding patio door, and they use a casting for the handle. It's like U-shaped, hollowish U-shaped aluminum. And one day the handle broke. So I used some steel wool, formed it into the back of the handle, and used some epoxy. Added some more steel wool into it, and waited till it dried, reassembled it, worked the charm. Took me way too hard to back to that.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I've forced drivers. Sometimes when you get a change in OS, Windows mainly, where the company hasn't released their new driver yet, frequently you can kind of force the old one to work if you know what you're doing. You take apart the driver file and do a little editing there so that it doesn't tell you you're not using the correct operating system, and so on and so forth. Windows now complains loudly when you do things like this, but there are still ways to force it. But yeah, stuff like that. And I've certainly had my series of, splinting things back together. Not everything can just be glued. And when I was talking about my brother and I fixing the bumper on the Sportage a couple weekends ago, he created his own, plastic splint device out of a soldering gun and a bunch of bent paper clips. And that worked rather well. I'm kind of happy with that. So, neat stuff. And I think what made me think of this was that I actually did one of these today, and I'll hit everybody up with that when we get to the end of this round. So thanks, Jerry. Matt, anything else from your archives?
GGM. Three things. Always wanted a Volkswagen box West. I thought those were different. I had a VW Jetta. Gas pedal would always come off the cable. Eventually, permanently fixed it back in the gas pedal. That's great. Again, with the cars, had a 91 Toyota 4x4 pickup. Let me drop it. And back up. 91 Toyota 4x4 pickup. It was about 10 or 12 years. It was one of the two cars that I bought new in my life. And it was about 10 or 12 years old, had nearly 200,000 miles on it. And I was driving along in Oneonta, New York, one day, and the belt started squealing, smoke come out. Turns out the tensioner pulley seized, IVC's rock solid. So I pulled over, of course, looking at it. Oh man, there's no parts stores open Sunday. Well, So I looked around and I saw that the air conditioner idler pulley was there. And it was October and it was my air conditioner, so I took that pulley off and swapped it, smaller diameter, and I got some shims under the adjuster, and I was able to tension it and drove it home. So that was a good hack. And there was another one that reminded me of. But, oh, there's just so many, things that you do to make things work. And it's always, I have found it's always good to think as simply as you can. Do the thing with the fewest number of parts in the most direct way. If you get fancy with a hack, you're going to fall. You're going to fall in your face. But this, back to this, KB2 GTO.
Yeah, our vehicles sometimes are the source of the best hacking. And I think one of the first times I ever actually had to come up with a creative way to glue something and use that splint idea was one of the first cars I drove, a 1980 Fiat Strada. It was my dad's car. And God, I love that thing. And the Strada was basically an Italian Volkswagen Golf. It was a lot of fun to drive. Fiat, even when their reliability was suspect and everything else, they made cars with these motors that just cried to be revved, and they were so much fun to drive. But everything else on the car broke. I was closing the hatch one night, and the post that the retaining rod in the hatch, goes around a post at the bottom of the hatch where you close it, and that's what holds it shut, and that's what releases when you press a button or turn a key. And this curved over, upside down J-shaped post looked like a piece of nylon, but it had a metal core, and it just snapped. And this was when Fiat had started to pull out of the country. There was only one place left selling Fiat parts, and that was in New Jersey. And this was before the internet or Amazon or Rock Auto or anything like that. You couldn't just get something online. So I called down to Ramsey and I ordered the part, and they said it would probably be a couple of weeks. And in the meantime, I couldn't keep the hatch closed. So Dad owned a dental supply company, and I talked to my brother about it, and he agreed with me. The best way to handle this was to think of it as a tooth restoration. Let me try. So I got one of the open box or used little pin drills and everything I needed to run it. And when they do major tooth restorations, post and core, as they say, sometimes they will put these things called pins into the restoration. And it increases the strength of it. And then there's posts. You hear the term post and core. Post goes into frequently a root canal and gives strength to the restored tooth or crown so that it doesn't snap off again. So we drilled a central hole into the metal piece and made a post out of a screw that we cut the head off of, and then found a bunch of really, really tiny screws and put those in the plastic around it, and made those as the pins, so to speak, and then just epoxied the whole thing back together, but made a corresponding hole for the center at the other end of the metal. And it actually held. And it held so well that the part that came from Ramsey ended up being my spare. I never replaced it again. So stuff like that does happen, and it's a lot of fun. All right. Bob said he was out walking the dogs, but we'll just double check. Bob, did you make it back? KD2 RFI? All right. Mike, KC2 UVP, I know you have a phobia about multi-round nets, but are you still there?
in there. We'll get back. Back to you. Yeah. You know how I hate different people. But how's things going with you tonight? All right.
Joe, we're in the middle of a net. If you want to check in, please wait until we're done with this round. But we're in the middle of a net. Just stand by, and you can check in if you'd like. Mike, I didn't hear you because Joe sometimes is so loud that he actually overloads my radio to where it shuts off. And that's what happened. So I didn't hear what you said, Mike.
I said, Roger, that I heard Joe made his call, and like I said, my favorite hack is waking up every morning and trying to figure out the day. That's my most favorite hack. Anyways, Joe, we hear you in there. We are in a net, and I'm going to send it back to net control. And thank you, everybody. Ciao.
All right, and last in this round was Tom into FCC. Any other stories for us, Tom? Tom into FCC, are you still with us? All right, OMARC. Tom has checked out for now. Is there anybody else who would like to check in at the end of this second round? And we're probably going to end just after, like a free-for-all. I'll toss it out to anybody else. But is anybody else who would like to check in, including Joe?
Here is K2BHM.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks for checking in. And is there anybody else who'd like to check in? I think Joe may have sent himself away. I don't know. But anybody else who'd like to check in?
KV2RWW, just checking in and slipping into work, so I won't be able to chat. KV2RWW, mark me secure.
All right, Bob, thanks. Jim, did you hear enough of the rounds here to get the topic tonight, or you want a quick explanation?
I caught a little bit, K2PHM here. It's been a rough couple of days. I'm under the weather quite a bit and can't wait for Wednesday for surgery to hopefully resolve things. But anyhow, you were talking about hacks, and basically you described my whole life. When I was a kid, 5, 6 years old, my dad would take me to the junkyard on Saturday mornings that a friend of his ran. And we'd go there and look around through the files and see what did what and how it worked and so forth. And if it looked interesting, we'd take it home and we'd take it apart and see what makes it tick and bring it back again. And if it was really interesting, we'd take it and make something else out of it and go back and give them a couple bucks for it. So that started the history, and it just progress from there. You drop a second. Wrong button. Anyhow, probably the culmination of that was when I was field service engineer for ADAC Nuclear Medicine. They made nuclear medicine gamma cameras out of California, and I was the field service engineer for the Albany area, upstate New York. And cameras had a wiring harness that went from the computer and power supply down to the bottom, up to the head, so it would rotate around the patient and in and out, stuff like that. And these wiring harnesses would flex and fail. most common failure was the 16 gauge wires, 3 for ground and 3 for 5 volts, were in parallel, and one of them would fail, and the 5 volts would get down to like 4.95 or 4.93, and that would screw up the calibration of the head. And the official solution for that was to put the machine down, order up a new set of cables, which you come in tomorrow, and take the whole day to repair them. And we're talking about a $1.5 million machine with people depending on this to determine whether they have cancer or not, and other serious tests that need to be done. And you're talking about taking the hospital down for 2 full days of patient scheduling. Well, in comes the hack. I happen to know where several wires were. They were 22 gauge, but they were dedicated for other services that might not have been used. So you take a half a dozen 22 gauge and parallel it up with the 16 gauge that's broken, and all of a sudden it doesn't make any difference anymore. So now, as a result, the machine is down for an hour or 2, and they get all the rest of the patients through, and then I come back next week when you schedule it down, and I fix it. So that was probably the best hack I've ever done. That one that made me. It also got me Field Service Engineer of the Year award, but that's, I think, what the epitome of hacking is. That is great. I'm happy about that. I was proud that
We have timed out the repeater. Hey, Jim, you timed out the repeater, but we only lost like the last 3 words.
Okay, sorry about that. Hopefully it was something that encouraged people to go on and be proud about their hacking.
Well, good stuff. All right. Let's see if there's anybody else. Any last-minute check-ins out there? All right. I've been talking this week, going back to the day that Jim swears I was stalking him, about how I broke the Sportage. So, most modern automatic cars have a manual shift function. Some of them with buttons on the steering wheel or paddles on the back of the steering wheel. But a lot of them have a secondary gate on the shifter that serves as the manual shift gate. And all of my Kias have the same shift design. It's just a regular selector style floor shifter that all the automatics have. Park at the top, low, or 1 at the bottom. But right next to drive is a gate to the left. So you pull the shift lever to the left when it's in drive, and you get a little secondary shifting gate where it's spring-loaded, up or down. And up for upshift, down for downshift. Makes sense. And I use it once in a while. I don't use it as much as I used to, because actually I found out when I was using it a lot, the transmission computer tend to get a little confused as to my driving patterns. Because most of these new ones are learning transmissions. If you spend too much time in manual mode, it seems to mess up the learning for the automatic side. So I don't use it that much anymore. But when I went to use it the other day, it got stuck in Sportmatic, as Kia calls it. Let me drop. The issue here, which I sat there for a moment and thought about it, is I can't stop and turn the car off, because I'm never going to be able to start it again, because you can only start it in park or neutral. And I couldn't get it back into the regular gate to do that. I'm not going to be able to get the key out. So that's something. And I'm not going to be able to, get it into park. I won't be able to restart it. And I won't be able to get it into reverse. So my plan was drive straight home, since there's a spare car, pull it into the driveway and just shut it off, and leave it there until I could figure it out, and just take the other car. So it sat for a few days in the driveway with the key stuck in the ignition and me unable to do anything with it. And also, the way the keys are set up, if the key is stuck in the ignition, you can't turn the key all the way to off. That position that it's stuck in is accessory when you drop it. And even though I turned off the radio and anything else that seemed active, I think it sends voltage to enough devices that the car was also, dead battery-wise today when I went to work on it. But I fixed it, and I did not fix it by replacing the cable or bushings or anything that was possibly making this thing do what it was doing. But after I took apart the whole shift mechanism, I realized what was going on was that the automatic shift cable was not fully releasing to its fully extended position, which where it would normally be sitting if I was in drive. And of course, the Kias don't have anything below the drive part of the gate, because to get to a lower gear, you would go into the manual mode. So fully extended, the cable is not fully extended. Something is holding it back slightly. And it's so close. We're talking about maybe a 1/16 of an inch off or less. And there's a series of gates that this shift lever passes through. There's an upper gate, and there's what I call a softener gate, which is like a soft plastic insert so it doesn't feel so notchy and rough. And then there's a main gate over to the right that when you get out of Sportmatic and back into regular mode, there's a big nylon block that fits between two other nylon blocks with some grease on them, and that's what engages the main shifter. Another drop. W2NDG on the OMARC Sunday Night Science and Technology Net. So since I was so close, probably, like I said, like a 1/16 of an inch or so from the thing actually being able to engage with the two blocks in between them, I could just push back on the big piece of nylon in there, and it would fit perfectly. Or pull on the cable and it'd fit. So I looked at the guides, which are made of plastic, which force the shifter to only travel in a certain direction and a certain amount. And I figured, well, there's my 1/16 of an inch. So I took out a file and I rounded off the corners of one of the shift guides and brought it, down about 1/16 of an inch and just made it a little less notchy. And problem solved. It hasn't gotten stuck, and I've tried it a bunch of times. So here's my MacGyver act of the day. W2NDG on the OMARC Sunday Night Science and Technology Net. We're going to throw it out. Open discussion. Anybody else who has anything they want to add? And then we'll close things up. Does anybody have any comments or further stories? Come down with your call sign. And that's fine. I'm tired too. It was a fun net. And Jim, glad to hear you at the end there. Hopefully we'll catch you tomorrow. And I think we'll close things up here. Final comments from you, Jim.
No, just white. And just can't wait for Wednesday.
I know, and I wish you the best of luck if I don't catch you before then, but I probably will catch you before then. So, all right. Anyway, that's all from me. This has been the OMARC Sunday Night Science and Technology Net. We hams meet here every Sunday night at 8 p.m. on 146.805 OMARC repeater on Overlook Mountain. And even some non-hams through YouTube, because we do simulcast on the W2NDG Science and Technology YouTube channel. This club runs the 146.805 repeater, Overlook Mountain Amateur Radio Club, or OMARC. You do not need to be a member of OMARC to participate in any of our nets or activities, but we encourage you to do so. We're a friendly club. We'd love to have you as a member. If you want more information on how to become a member or participate more, you can find us at omarcclub.org, omarcclub.org on the internet. Drop. This repeater hosts 4 regular nets, actually 5 now. So every morning at 8:35 a.m., a rotating crew of OMARC people hosts the 8:35 on the 8:05. Mostly the founder of the net, Paul, AC2UQ. The net was started at the beginning of the OMARC lockdown during the pandemic, when we lost the ability to have meetings or in-person get-togethers. Hams are social creatures, as Paul says, and the original social network, Ham Radio, he wanted to start something where people could just chat casually and make sure we were all okay, because not all of us were okay, and we needed that social contact. So every morning, 8:35, and it is not a directed net, it's a casual net. So every evening at 6:30 is the OMARC Daily Check-In net. A little more formal, as it is a directed net, but still an informal directed net. Very same theme to the morning net, and hosted by a rotating cast of OMARC members. Let me drop. Every Thursday night at 8 p.m., Dave, K2JLV, our club president, hosts the Thursday night technical net, where we discuss usually a ham radio related technical topic, sometimes brought up by the members during the first round, someone who has a question or a problem that they would like solved by the net that night. If not, Dave spins the wheel of topics and comes up with one for us. Always fun, and it's always good if you have something that you haven't been able to figure out, just bring it to the Thursday night net and we'll see what we can do for you. Let me drop. Every Sunday night, Jim, K2BHM, and I, W2NDG, host this net, the Sunday Night Science and Technology net. Not always about ham radio, like tonight. It wasn't really a ham topic, but always science and technology related, and sometimes with a series of topics that we try to cover. And we'll get back into those in September. And we have a new net, and I don't know 100% of the details, but let me drop. Tuesday nights, we are now running an Aries Races emergency services net, which is what that is. And I believe it's at 8 p.m. on Tuesday nights, hosted by Brad, and I don't have his call sign written down. But we'll probably have a rotating crew on that one as well at some point, or at least someone who can fill in. So we are getting back into the emergency services part of the hobby, and having a regular net where we can practice is a good idea. So that's Tuesday nights at 8 p.m., and someone can correct me if I'm wrong.
Comment, K2BHM.
Go ahead, Jim.
K2PRP is also starting a DMR net on a rotating schedule. No particular fix yet, so that you can catch people with catch on, I believe it's 31368, our home channel.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't want to get too far into that until he does get a more regular schedule on it, but yes. And it's on 31368, and he usually informs through several, electronic means and lets us know where and when.
Yeah, it's kind of informal at this point.
Yes, and we talked about getting something going on DMR, which is a good thing. Keeping the channel alive. All right, thanks, Jim, for pointing that out, and that's it. This has been the OMARC Sunday Night Science and Technology Net, and we now return the repeater to its regular use. I'm going to end the YouTube stream, and as usual, I'll be here for 5 or 10 minutes if anybody wants to chat. Everybody have a good evening. 7-3.
Again, this is November 2, Nancy Charlie Indian.
Hey, Joe. I'm still here, like I said.
Oh, yeah. I didn't mean to interrupt the net. I had it on, and I did, the radio, and I didn't